In horror gaming, creatures and monsters are usually a crucial element that the developers use to unsettle you and scare you by using their looks, their movements, or even their mysterious background. But in Silent Hill specifically, monsters are more than just enemies you can fight and move on. In other words, they're not meant to give you a scare by seeming disturbing, but they're literally disturbing because their existence means something, and there's an actual history behind their designs. This history is not necessarily related to them separately, but it can be the tragic past of a certain character in the game, or maybe the protagonist themselves. Even though there are so many examples that we can use in this subject, there are specific Silent Hill monsters that simply keep living rent-free in my mind. Not because they're the most popular in the series, but because they're the most bizarre and enigmatic in a way that most people don't even bother to understand their meaning. In this quick video, I'm going to talk about some of these entities, and I will try to explain why they're terrifying for me and how their presence is not random at all. So without further ado, let's start. In Silent Hill 2, monsters tend to have a clear relation to the story and events, whether directly or indirectly. But for many players, Abstract Daddy has a very unique position in the experience, because this thing is seriously distressing in every sense, and even his name triggers so many questions in our minds. It's a fusion of two humanoid forms. One figure is a larger, masculine entity with a gaping, toothless mouth, and the other is a smaller, weaker, or maybe a younger shape, seemingly trapped or engulfed beneath it. Now, before going any further, the description I mentioned so far should be enough to make you insanely disturbed. The larger figure's head is fleshy, but his body looks like it's merged with the other figure under a sheet-like covering, resembling a twisted bed. This monster makes unsettling, breathy noises, which really feels like he's suffocating someone, and even his attacks seem like they're meant to choke you. To understand who this monster is and what he really represents, you need first to learn about Angela's story and her tragic past. Angela is a 19-year-old girl that you meet in Silent Hill Town, specifically at the beginning of your playthrough, where you see her in a cemetery. She seems confused, lost, and very innocent, even in the way she speaks. But she also appears very, very traumatized. Her trauma is directly linked to her days as a child with her family, and it really forces you to feel sorry for her. When she was younger, she was touched by her father on a regular basis. And when I say touched, I don't just mean he was physically aggressive towards her, but I also mean that he took advantage of her body in a forceful, intimate way. I'm trying to deliver the message to you without using explicit words, so please be smart with me.
Yeah, I'm James.
Angela.
Angela, okay. I don't know what you're planning, but there's always another way.
Once you discover this context, the meaning of Abstract Daddy becomes much more clear for you, because now you can see that the larger figure overpowering the smaller one on the bottom represents the dynamic of a predator, dominating a helpless victim. And this victim is Angela herself. The bed-like shape of its body and the suffocating nature of its attacks evoke the actions that she endured from her father, likely in her own room. Not only that, but the name Abstract Daddy literally means the ideal father, which is intended to highlight the cruel irony and probably to indicate how a father is the biggest nightmare for his daughter, even though fathers are typically the ones who protect their children. This explains why Angela across the game looks desperate and scared. The fact that the closest person to her was the reason for her suffering made her lose hope in humanity in general, which is also why she felt very suspicious of James, thinking he might be like her father. This is such an intense topic to include in a video game, but it shows us again how Silent Hill is much deeper than any horror game out there. I mean, the design of this monster is basically the most disturbing in gaming history, and I can't even imagine how women and girls who went through similar experiences to Angela in real life would react to this unbearable meaning behind this monster's presence.
Angela. It's okay. Calm down.
Don't order me around!
I'm not. It's okay. It's over.
Don't even try.
Try what?
Like you don't know.
Silent Hill 3 definitely has some of the most well-designed and creepy creatures in the franchise. But one monster that many people usually overlook is the terrifying insane cancer. He looks like a hulking creature with a fat, human shape and a bloated, tumorous body covered in sagging, pale flesh that jiggles unnaturally as he walks or runs. His head is basically a featureless mass, lacking eyes or a proper face, giving him a very distressing presence because you can't understand what he really is at first. But even though he moves very slowly, he can still run towards Heather sometimes, and he also makes a disturbing sound, similar to a dying patient struggling for oxygen. When he gets closer, he can swell up further and his flesh is visibly expanding before launching an attack or falling down to rest. However, the bizarre design of this monster is far from being random. Because in case you don't know, the protagonist Heather has a huge fear of being pregnant with something that's growing inside her without her desire. Because in the context of the game, Heather is supposed to be pregnant with an entity that the Order cult worships, which made her extremely scared of pregnancy and the idea of having something inside her stomach that gets bigger uncontrollably. So, if you focus on insane cancer deep enough, you will see that his swollen, sagging flesh represents the physical reality of pregnancy, when a body is expanding to hold something growing inside. But the catch is that this is not a healthy pregnancy with a cute little baby, because his tumorous, reddish appearance indicates something destructive and unnatural, which is the deity of the cult's parasitic nature rather than a human child. At the same time, his innocent movements like sitting down and becoming calm show that he's also supposed to represent a baby. But this baby's body is full of cancerous signs and showcases a devastating corruption, which is exactly the evil that Heather fears to carry inside her. Once again, this is such a crazy concept to see in a horror game, but Silent Hill is more than a video game.
Dad! Dad!
Silent Hill 4 might not be very popular for having the most symbolic monsters in the franchise, but in my opinion, the twin victim is an exception, because it's truly frightening and heartbreaking at the same time. It has a very unique appearance in the game, and it's basically two combined infant-like figures, dangling from a single body, supported by thin, elongated arms. And these arms end with oversized hands. The faces are very bland, no open eyes, no emotions or a functioning mouth. It's just a smooth, pale shape that makes them look like dolls. And this is actually what I thought when I played the game for the first time. They make loud, childlike giggles and occasionally point with one arm before running forward with surprising speed to attack you. After diving deep enough into the story of Silent Hill 4, you start to realize that this freak you're fighting across the game is not just a scary monster with no purpose. To understand their purpose, you need first to know about Walter Sullivan, the antagonist of the game and the ruthless serial killer. His story starts as a child when he was abandoned by his parents in room 302. As a result, he grew up in an orphanage and was raised by none other than the Order cult, the crazies of every game. As time passed, he became obsessed with reuniting with his mother, and the cult convinced him that this goal could be achieved, but only if he fulfilled a ritual called 21 Sacraments, in which he must kill 21 specific people, and each victim has a number. The 7th and 8th victims were two siblings called Billy and Miriam Locane, and they are two young children living in Silent Hill Town. Billy and Miriam loved each other so much, and they used to do everything together. Sadly, Walter ended their lives with cold blood, but their screams and faces never actually left his mind. And this is why, in the other world, his psyche invented a nightmarish version of them. This creature symbolizes Miriam and Billy, and the two united faces in one body represent how they share the same fate after they were killed together at the same time by Walter. The childlike appearance reflects their youth and innocence, brutally stripped away from them, and the laughter shows how the happiness of two kids turned into something monstrous. Even their pointing gestures are actually meant to reflect how they blame Walter for their murder, and also the protagonist Henry for failing to stop him. It's really a scary design, and it makes us understand how Walter was actually suffering from agony and shame for all the tragedies that he caused. Because unlike other Silent Hill games, the mental state of the antagonist here is actually the reason behind all these nightmarish entities and the disturbing otherworlds. Back to Silent Hill 3 because it seriously has some of the craziest monsters out there. And even though this creature was mentioned by Florian in previous videos, I had to talk about it again in this video. Slurper is an outlandish enemy in every sense because even though he has the shape of a human, he also has a unique, skinny, emaciated body and a distinctive elongated head that ends in a wide, tube-like mouth that seems like a vacuum cleaner or leech. He has a clear male form when it comes to the body, but his face has no eyes or human features. With that being said, the scariest part about this thing is not his appearance, it's actually the way he moves. I mean, despite having the body of a human, Slurper crawls on the ground like a sneaky lizard, with his uncanny limbs instead of walking. However, once you see the way he attacks Heather, you start to really get what he represents and why he looks like that. First of all, he always shows up silently from nowhere due to his stealthy movement, and he usually ambushes Heather from shadows or tight spaces. And when he targets her, he tends to pin her down to the ground, and he seems like he wants to access her body while she's vulnerable and helpless. Not only that, but he also loves to grab Heather from her legs, and sometimes he even looks like he wants to go under her clothes. The chilling aspect about all of this is that these actions are very intentional, and Slurper knows exactly what he's doing. As I explained with insane cancer before, Heather's fear of being pregnant with an evil entity made her very paranoid and scared of being stalked by suspicious men, because she thinks they want to touch her in an intimate way. So the behavior of Slurper is actually meant to represent predatory males who want to enforce their dominance over a female victim because they are attracted to her body. The monster's low stalking movement in the dark is deliberately designed to seem like a man sneaking to catch a woman off guard, making her seem like prey, which is exactly what Heather fears. And even if you focus on his name, you'll notice the term Slurper is also hinting at a behavior of a lusty, hungry predator who's excited to taste his victim. I mean, slurping is an action people do when they eat or taste something so hard that they make noise while doing it. For example, many people usually slurp when they eat pasta. I think you get the point.
I don't get it.
These were the 4 most memorable Silent Hill monsters that literally never left my mind since I played the games. And I'm not exaggerating when I say that I never saw any similar monsters in any other horror game. But before I finish the video, I need to mention one last entity that gave me nightmares, which are the hauntings in Silent Hill 4. The hauntings manifest as supernatural disturbances within room 302, where the protagonist Henry resides. They're not monsters in the traditional sense, but they're basically environmental anomalies that invade the apartment's walls, furniture, and even atmosphere. Sometimes they can even show up as a shadowy figure in front of the door's peephole. The ones on the walls make extremely disturbing sounds, moaning or crying, seemingly asking for help. You can also hear loud noises and footsteps coming from the ceilings, or certain items working randomly in the room. What makes this situation insanely scary is that the room is supposed to be your safe haven from the nightmarish otherworlds. But the hauntings somehow corrupt it, and they take away any sense of security. They cry, whisper, and scream, forcing you to feel helpless, just like them. Eventually, you start to connect the dots and understand that these entities represent the restless spirits of the 21 victims that Water killed, and they are stuck within the room as part of his ritual, forever. In a certain case, you can even see the ghost of the protagonist Henry at the door, indicating his demise because he's also supposed to be one of the 21 victims. There's also a chance that some of these hauntings represent the former residents of the Devilish Room 302, who lost their lives inside it and their spirits are still roaming it, even when you don't see them directly. Long story short, they are very creepy and unique too, because this type of horror was never used in Silent Hill before, especially in first-person perspective.
I'm always watching you. I'm always watching you. I'm always watching you. I'm always watching you.
Anyway guys, this is all for today. Please like this video if you enjoyed it and let me know in the comments below what you think about these horrifying monsters and whether you think I missed some other disturbing ones. If I had to add another mysterious one, it would probably be the lion figure in Silent Hill 2. This creature is usually overlooked, but he has a deep meaning because being wrapped in a straitjacket-like layer and spit in acid is supposed to represent Mary's disease and her physical struggle when she was in the hospital. Anyway, enough for now, and I will probably make part 2 very soon if you enjoyed this one. See you next time.